Good holy everybody, this is Angeli Joy C. Arabis. The topic that we will be discussing today is Benjamin Bloom's cognitive domain of learning. These are our objectives. First, understand the cognitive domain of learning. Second, identify the 6 categories under Bloom's taxonomy. Third, identify the differences of Bloom's taxonomy in 1969 and Bloom's revised taxonomy in 2001. Fourth, understand the purpose of Bloom's taxonomy in teaching and learning process. You can see on the screen a picture of Benjamin Bloom. Benjamin Bloom was an American educational psychologist who formulated the domains of learning together with a group of researchers in the year 1956. The researchers include Max Engelhardt, Edward First, Walter Hill, and David Krathwohl. The framework which categorizes educational goals is called domains of learning. It can also be called taxonomy of educational objectives or taxonomy of learning domains. The domains of learning can be categorized into 3. First is the cognitive domain, second is the psychomotor domain, and third is the affective domain. These domains of learning has been applied by generations of K-12 teachers and college instructors in their teaching. Since the world of education has gradually adopted the every child matters structure, the domains that have been mentioned would cater the varying needs of learners through methods that are part of the planning and delivery of the lessons. Among the 3 domains, our focus in this discussion is the cognitive domain of learning. The cognitive domain of learning contains learning skills predominantly related to mental thinking processes. This can be explained by the fact that the word cognitive comes from the word cognition, which refers to the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thoughts, experience, and senses. Therefore, the cognitive domain of learning aims to develop the mental skills and acquisition of knowledge of an individual. Benjamin Bloom in the year 1956 further elaborated the cognitive domain of learning into 6 different categories of thinking. The 6 categories are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. You can see on the screen how the categories are arranged in order, from simple to complex and from concrete to abstract. It is a progressive climb to a higher level of thinking. This framework was revisited by Benjamin Bloom's former student Lauren Anderson in the mid-90s. Anderson made some changes to the framework and called the newly formed framework as Bloom's revised taxonomy. These are the changes made by Anderson. First, he changed the names of the 6 categories from noun form to verb form, in which knowledge becomes remember or remembering, comprehension becomes understand or understanding, application becomes apply or applying, analysis becomes analyze or analyzing, evaluation becomes evaluate or evaluating, and synthesis becomes create or creating. The reason behind this change is that Anderson wanted to reflect the nature of thinking in each category. The names were changed to indicate action because thinking implies active engagement. The second change Anderson made was to slightly rearrange the categories, specifically the last 2 categories, which include evaluating and creating. Anderson believed that the learner's ability to evaluate came before his or her ability to synthesize or create. He viewed creative thinking as a more complex form of thinking than evaluating. Those are the changes made by Anderson in Bloom's taxonomy of 1956. According to him, Bloom's revised taxonomy reflects more active form of thinking and is perhaps more accurate than the first version. Here I am presenting Bloom's revised taxonomy. You can see on the screen what skills are to be done in each category. Let's start with remembering. Remembering includes recognizing and recalling of facts. One example is when a child recites the alphabet, he or she recalls what he or she have memorized in the past. Next is understanding. Understanding is comprehending the meaning of the information given. One example is when a learner interprets the graph given by the teacher according to his or her own understanding. Next is applying. In this category, facts, rules, concepts, or ideas are being applied, or it basically refers to carrying out or using the information in another familiar situation. One example is when a learner applies the formula in getting mean to solve her average grade for the first quarter. Next is analyzing. This category involves breaking down of information into component parts. One example is when a learner tries to analyze the attitude of a character in a story by looking back on the events in the story that might have influenced the action of the character. Next is evaluating. In this category, learners judge the value of information or ideas. One example is when I ask a learner to evaluate or judge if the choices made by the character in a certain story is good or bad. Last and the most complex is creating. In this category, the learners combine parts to make a new whole. This is when the students build or write their own output using their own schema, gained knowledge, or ability. These are the verbs used in every category of Bloom's revised taxonomy. These verbs are used in creating objectives that would guide us teachers in planning and delivering our lessons. We have finished discussing Bloom's taxonomy, but what is really the purpose of this framework in the teaching and learning process? First is to plan and deliver appropriate instruction. With the Bloom's taxonomy, teachers would be able to plan and prepare for every part of their lesson. The framework would help in choosing the right style of teaching in a specific type of topic. Second is to design valid assessment tasks and strategies. Bloom's taxonomy is already widely used in creating assessments. It provides assessment tasks that are divided accordingly so that every assessment would not just be comprised of remembering or understanding questions, which makes the assessment invalid. Third is to ensure that instruction and assessment are aligned with the objectives. Bloom's taxonomy serves as a guide so that teachers would be able to have a focus in the way they teach the students and they could create tests or assessments that are based on the objectives. To summarize, development of learning skills should never be taken for granted in teaching or learning new content. Teachers and learners need to understand the hierarchy of processes and skills within the cognitive domain so that they would appreciate prerequisite skills for learning, as well as the way these skills need to be transformed to master more complicated elements of skills and abilities. This has been Anjali Joyce Arabis. Thank you for listening.